My name is Wesley Tucker, and I'm an ag business specialist with University of Missouri Extension and part of the Division of Applied and Social Sciences. This video lesson is part of a project called Marketing Opportunities for Missouri's Niche Meat and Poultry Processors and is made possible by a grant from the Missouri Agriculture and Small Business Development Authority. Why is succession planning so important? Well, baby boomers, who have been one of the most entrepreneurial generations, are reaching the end of their working lives. 70% of current baby boomers had hoped to retire by 2020. I have a feeling COVID-19 may have had impact on that. But if you think about our nation, there is an immense amount of small businesses looking to roll over to the next generation. Whether you are a farmer, whether you operate a hardware store on rural Main Street, or whether you're a meat processor, there are lots and lots of businesses that are going to be transitioning from one generation to the next in the next 10 years. Data from the Small Business Administration would tell us that if I have a good business with a proven track record and I sell that business to a non-family member, 70% of the time that business goes on and is successful. However, if that business is passed to my heirs and they continue to run it, that success rate drops to only 30%. There are lots of reasons why that success rate drops so dramatically, but one of them is simply the clash of the two systems, the family system versus the business system. Managing and running a family-owned business, while can be very, very rewarding, it's also the most difficult business to maintain because it's so hard to maintain the separation of family relationships and business relationships. And we're constantly going to be having this area of friction and conflict between them. If you think about a typical business succession, what normally happens is you begin working in the family business as a young person, as what we call a grunt, all right? And as you develop and get older and move into adulthood, hopefully you move up into what you could consider maybe an assistant manager, or more appropriately, probably just a grunt level 2, because you're given responsibility for production and lots of job duties, but you're really never made manager over the business. You're never given control of the finances. However, when the business owner dies and passes away, the next day after the funeral, suddenly you're cast into the role of CEO. That's the way a lot of our typical businesses pass from one generation to the next. Our goal, however, would be to create a roadmap for getting from where we are today to where we would like to be. My family loves horseback riding in the mountains. This is a picture of my wife and daughter this summer in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. We get to see a lot of beautiful scenery on vacation. But what is the very first step we take when we're planning a vacation? We have to find out how we're going to get there. And so it used to be we would pull out an atlas. Today it's we pull out our phones and plot a course to get there. But we have to know how we're going to get from where we are today to where we hope to get. That's the same thing that a succession plan is. It's simply a roadmap, hopefully with goals and timelines. You know, where would we like to be 3 years from today? Where would we like to be 2 years beyond that? And then all the way into eventually the next generation taking over. But it plots that course for us. I could not take vacation by just jumping in the vehicle and heading west without a roadmap for how I'm going to get there. Well, the same goes for our succession plan. And this really is a process. It's a process that takes time. And the more time and effort we put into it, the sooner we can start the process, the better. The ones that have to transition all of a sudden completely overnight, such as one family member becomes sick and someone has to come in and take over, those are the transitions that have the most challenges and often have the lowest success rates. I like to think of succession planning in 5 phases. The first phase being education and experience away from home. We want our successors to go get learning and experiences elsewhere. If we want them to have aspects where they learn about other parts of the business, something that maybe we don't do in our operation. That's going to include formal education like college and things like that, but it's also going to include, mentor groups and peer groups that they can learn from. If Google wants to hire a new CEO, they don't go walk over to the local high school and say, which one of you 18-year-olds wants to make $3 million next year? That's not the way they do it. So the more experience you can get elsewhere, the more valuable you're going to be to your business whenever you actually come back to it. Phase 2 is what we call a trial work period. This is usually a period of 1 to 2 years, and we actually pay our son or daughter-in-law an actual salary. We pay them just like we would pay someone else. But the key is that they're learning how we work together. And at the end of that period, it ends with an honest evaluation from both of us. Do we want to move on into being partners and business relationships, or do we just want to stay family and go our separate ways? Because the reality is being flesh and blood does not guarantee success. You're going to hear me say multiple times, we've got to focus on separating those family relationships from those business relationships. And that's the hardest part. If we, at the end of the trial work period, we decide we do want to continue down this path, phase 3, we begin the pathway to management and ownership. And again, I cannot stress enough how this needs to be a roadmap. Unfortunately, many of our businesses are much more like a treasure map. And a treasure map says, hey, son or daughter, come back and become part of the family business. And if we tend to do a good job of going around the octopus and the pirates and the quicksand, and the business works out and the nursing home doesn't get it, and I don't decide to leave it to your other brothers and sisters, maybe someday you'll get the business. But there's really no plan for how that is to come about. In that phase 3, we want them having a path to ownership, but also management. Where are they getting to specialize in the business? Where are they getting to learn the business? One of my producers tells about a time that he sent his son to go procure certain assets that they were going to manage and utilize for this stage of the business. The son made some bad choices and made some bad purchases. But you know what? He learned that as he continued those on down the production line. He allowed his son to learn and become a better manager as a result of it. They need to be making decisions. If they are only doing what we tell them to do, they are not learning management. They also need to be becoming an owner. What do they get to own? And hopefully the sooner rather than later, because we want them learning about the finances. We want them learning about taking on loans to buy into the business. And sometimes we do have to get really creative with our compensation plans. Often in our small businesses, we don't generate enough cash to support one family, let alone 2. So maybe we can't compensate them with salary like we'd like to, but maybe we create a plan that allows them to earn a small percentage of the business each year. Does making them an owner make them a better manager? Absolutely it does. This is a picture of many, many years ago, and I'm standing in front of the rusted out fender well so that you don't see it in the picture. But the day I bought that truck from my parents and it became mine rather than just me driving someone else's vehicle was a day of pride and ownership for me. The 4th phase of the succession plan is continuing down that path to management and ownership, but taking on more and more of them each year. And by this stage of the succession plan, they need to be in charge of at least one area of the business that is theirs to manage and run. And again, they need to be learning the finances, the purchasing, the marketing, not just the production side. And this is where most businesses fail. Studies from all over the world will say that the finances are the last domain transferred from one generation to the next. And so I have to ask, are we really building capacity in the next generation if we're only allowing them to make production decisions and not financial ones? The 5th and final phase to the succession plan is the next generation becomes the majority owner. I begin to scale back and allow them to take over. And if this is done well, often there's another generation starting in phase 1 at this point. And it doesn't have to mean that I have to do what we call a complete withdrawal from the business. I can still be involved. It very well may mean that I need to be involved because there's valuable information that I may not have transferred to the next generation yet. But can I step back and let them assume the role of CEO, and I become more maybe what you'd consider a board chairman or an advisor? You know, how well can I mentor from the grave? I can't, but unfortunately, that's the way most businesses transfer. Maybe I can step back and become more that mentor role while I'm still here to help out the next generation. Successful transitions almost feel seamless. And again, I think that roadmap is one of those reasons why. Communication is absolutely vital to this, talking and discussing those things as we move throughout that. And I really feel like that's why those non-family succession have such higher success rates than family ones, because they're willing to talk about those details. You know, if I'm going to transition my business to little Johnny that lives down the road, he's going to buy into my business, then he's going to want to talk about all those finite things. He's going to want to say, you know, can we write a business agreement that says when I begin to buy into the business, when I begin to make management decision? We're not going to be constrained by those family and personal feelings and relationships. We're going to have more of that business to business relationship. That's the difference between the non-family and the family success rates. If you can tell me how you make decisions in your business and who is involved with those decisions, I will tell you, it will help us decide how where we're at in the succession plan, because who makes decisions and for how long becomes really, really important to the success of our succession plan. As I begin to wind down this video, I just want to leave this thought with you. What is your succession plan for your business? Are you operating under a roadmap of how the next generation is going to take over? Or have you passed your son or daughter a treasure map and said, I want you to sign up for a lifetime of servanthood in this business, and hopefully if we navigate all the obstacles, one day this will be yours. I do want to offer my condolences, tongue in cheek a little bit. Family businesses are hard. I wish I had the Staples easy button to hand you, but they are everything but easy. Again, family businesses are the hardest type of business there are to run, but they're also the most rewarding if we put forth the effort to do them right. Again, my name's Wesley Tucker with University of Missouri Extension and the Division of Applied and Social Sciences. I want to thank the Missouri Agriculture and Small Business Development Authority for making this project a reality. And if you need help with succession planning or have questions, feel free to reach out to me.